Welcome back to another edition of Who Wants to Be a Mathematician? I'm your host, Mr. Hill, coming at you with some AP Calculus, talking about revolving solids. So just as a refresher, if we have a couple solids that we are revolving around different axes, we have two different methods. We have a vertical method and we have a horizontal method. So we have vertical and horizontal. The vertical method, and how you determine what each one is depends on what you're doing with that solid. So if we had a shape that looks like this, that we're then going to revolve around the x-axis, we're going to get a shape that looks like kind of a can, a cylinder. And we know it's a vertical one because if we take the radius, and that's going in the vertical direction. Similarly, if we have a shape that looks like this, that we're revolving around the y-axis, then we know we're going to get the same shape, a can, but what's different about it is that this radius is going horizontally. So vertically, that's where the radius is going, and horizontally, that's where that radius is going. Now, to determine what to do with each of them, we have vertical is going to be from our leftmost point to our rightmost point. We're going to take the top function, subtract off the bottom function, square it at a pi because we want to rotate it around, and that's going to be terms of x. Now horizontally, we switch it up a little bit. We're going from the bottom to the top, and we're going to take the rightmost, subtract off the left. We're going to square it, add pi because we're making it into a circle-y shape, and that's going to be in terms of y. So let's do a couple examples of each ones. These are going to follow the ones that we already did in class, but we're just going to review it. So we want to find the volume of the shape generated by this curve. We have our shape y is equal to x squared plus 1. And we know that it is bounded by our x is equal to -1 and x equals 1. So if we draw our shape, let's do this one. If we draw our shape, we know that this shape is going to be up 1, it's going to look like a parabola, and we know that the bounds are 1 and -1. Now that's our shape. So if we finish drawing this shape, come down here, because we know we're revolving it around the x-axis, so we connect it with the x-axis, we draw our box. We know this is the shape that we're rotating around. So once we rotate it and make it look nice and pretty, we come up here, we draw our parabola bounded by -1 and 1. And if we rotate around, we know there's going to be a bottom part, so we do the same thing down here. And we draw our circle to make it look 3D. Whoop! Let's pretend that connects. Now if we cut this section down and we do a cross section and we take the radius, this radius right here, we know that's vertical, so we have to do the vertical method. And the vertical method is from left to right of the top minus bottom squared in terms of x, and we have pi to know that we're making a lot of circles. So if we start plugging in our numbers here, our leftmost is going to be over here. This is our leftmost. This is our leftmost point. Our rightmost point is right here. This is the rightmost point. And we need our top function, and we need to, so that's going to be this curve right up here. This is our top function, and our bottom function, the bottom of our shape that we're revolving around, is this right here. So the top, we know, is the x squared plus 1. We know the bottom is the line y equals 0. We know our left is equal to -1. We know our right is equal to 1. So now we just have to fill in the pieces. So we have the leftmost -1 to 1, left and right. Our top is x squared plus 1. And we're subtracting off our bottom, which is 0. And there you have it. That's it. I mean, you could simplify it to pi -1 to 1 of x squared plus 1 squared dx if you wanted to, but that is your answer. So now that was the vertical method. Now if we do a horizontal method, we're going to have the same types of things. We have y is equal to 2x minus x squared. Well, we don't like it in terms of y equals, we want x equals, and we did this the other day, and we get x is equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus y. All we did was complete the square and solve for y. We get that. We know that the bounds are -1, 1, and y equal to 1. So if we start drawing a picture here, then we know that our function looks like a parabola, and we're bounded by -1, 1, and 1. So if we draw this blue graph within there on our graphing calculator, we're going to get a shape that kind of looks like this. It goes through 0, 0, and ends up here. So the key thing here is, what are we being revolved around? Well, it's around x is equal to -1. So if we draw our x is equal to -1 and we revolve it around, and we finish drawing our shape, they're hanging up on the key thing. We finish drawing our shape attached to that line, we get kind of like a curvy triangle. And we know we want to spin it around that. So once we revolve it around that axis, around this line, x equals -1, we're spinning it around equals -1. We're spinning it around this line, going this way. We know that we're going to get a shape that looks like this. We revolved it around. And if we take a cross section right in the middle here, we know it's going to be a circle. And now if we take the radius of that circle, we know the radius is this. So the radius goes horizontally, so we're doing the horizontal method. So if we go back to a horizontal method, bottom to top of right minus left with respect to y, because we're doing horizontal method. And now we just need to fill in the information. So what is our bottom? Well, our bottom is this point down here. And whatever that point is, which it happens to be -3, whoop, just kidding. Our bottoms there, our top is this top point, once again. It's this line right here, and this line is at 1. So our bottom is our bottom, 1 equals our top. Now we have our right function. Well, our right function is going to be this line right here. Is that the rightmost of the shape that we're spinning? And the left function is going to be this function right here, the leftmost part of the shape that we're spinning. So this is the shape that we're spinning. So we need the bottom, we need the top, we need the right function, we need the left function. So now let's fill in the information. Well, we know we have pi times bottom, which is our -3, to our top, which is 1. And then we have our right function. Whoop, I messed that up. This is my left. This is my right. I don't know my rights from my left. Well, our function up here, we have a plus or minus. We need to figure out which one it is. And the way you figure it out is, are we going in the positive x direction or the negative x direction? Well, this function right here is going this way, which is the negative x direction. So that's how we get the 1 minus of that piece. So it goes in the negative direction here, so we know it's in the x minus. So that's our right function, and we're going to subtract off our left function, which happens to be the line -1. Oop, there's supposed to be a negative sign there. I apologize. So this is the line x equals -1. So we know our left function is a -1, and we square it, and we know we're in terms of y. So now let's simplify this a little bit. We have from -3 to 1 of 1 minus y plus 1 quantity squared dy these ones add up. So our final setup is going to be pi from -3 to 1 of 2 minus the square root of 1 minus y, the whole quantity squared, dy. So let's do one more. Let's do the guided practice one, just as a whole review. So first step is, what is our function? Well, it's y is equal to x cubed. Do we like it in that form? No, because it's y equals, so we want to set it in terms of x. X equals the cube root of y. Nice and easy. And we know that we're bounded by y is equal to 1 and y is equal to 8. So if we come over to our picture, I'm going to set this up. The cube root of y looks like this. And we have our bounds from 1 to 8. This is 8 up here, this is 1. So if we finish drawing our shape, we know we're bounded by this line and by this line. So this is going to be the whole shape that we're dealing with. Now, if we spin that around the axes, because we want to spin it around the y-axis, so we come here, draw our picture again, and I'm just going to do the cut that we know. So we have this shape. Then if we're spinning it around the y-axis, you draw a reflection of it, put your circles in, and you get your spun shape, because we're spinning it around that way. Now, if we take a cross section, we get a circle. If we take a radius of that circle, what direction that goes in? That goes in the horizontal direction. So if we remember a horizontal, it's from bottom to top of right minus left. So right minus left. So now we have to fill in our pieces. So our bottom piece is this right here, and that's equal to 1. Our top piece is this right here, and that's equal to 8. Our right function is this one right here, which is the cube root of y. This is our right function. And our left function is the line x equals 0 right here. So now we just need to fill in that. We have our pi from our bottom from 1 to 8 of our right, which is the cube root of y, minus our left, which is 0, squared dy. So if we want to simplify that, 1 to 8 of the cube root of y, quantity squared dy. And that's what you got. So the key is remembering if you're doing horizontal or vertical and knowing which function that is. And you can tell that by the radius. And then you come over here and you fill in your different pieces, and there you go.